Did it pause on us?
Yeah, all I saw was better, but
No.
that's okay because Chill with Jim is always better, more simpler, and more secure. So, like to welcome everyone to this special edition of Chill with Jim, where it's live from Bacalar, Mexico today. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. At Chill with Jim, it's always business up top and pajamas on the bottom, except for, oh wait, we're in Mexico, so it is business up top and bathing suits on the bottom, because that's how you roll when it's super hot outside. So I am your host, Jim McCarthy, and I am the client advocate for Strix, Louisiana. My job is to make sure that our clients are set up with the best equipment, software, and the best IT solutions to help make sure that their businesses are running at optimal efficiency. We also have David DeArmond with us.
Hey guys, I am David DeArmond, owner of Strix LA, and I appreciate everybody being on. It is cold. A lot of places are without power. So thank you for all of those that were able to make it, and especially Uncle Rob there, because I know Texas got hit pretty hard here. So thank you for making it here to chill with Jim anyway.
All right, so just a little bit about Strix, Louisiana. We believe that there's always a better, and you saw it in the beginning, better, simpler, more secure way to do just about everything in this world. So what that means to us is we are constantly searching and adapting our processes to make sure that we have the best solutions in place. Now, we believe that part of this responsibility is to help educate our clients as well as others out there on some of the current resources that are being used. We want to bring awareness to security risks, and we talk about just general topics that are going on in the IT world today. Today we have a special guest for everyone. It is actually my Uncle Rob. Rob Tenbrink is joining us live from Texas. Thank you for joining us, Uncle Rob.
No problem.
All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit about just working in a hospital environment, going over some of the security things that are in place, and then just talking about some of the projects and massive deployments of equipment that my Uncle Rob and his team are part of. And so just so everybody knows, my whole life I've called him Uncle Rob, so it's gonna come out Uncle Rob every time. I'm not changing it up. So, if Uncle Rob, would you mind just telling us a little bit about how you got your start in electronics and just a little bit about your background?
Okay. Well, actually, I work for a large, health system here in Texas. So, but I started out in film and television, actually. So, realized I couldn't make any money, so then I just moved on to network administration. So I spent about 10 years as a network administrator for a 300 user network, and then Y2K hit, and worked on a few Y2K projects and changed over to healthcare when I moved to Texas. So now I co-manage a group of 15 field techs in desktop support, and I have a strong background in help desk support as well here with the health system. So
awesome. Another thing I want to give some background here. So my grandma constantly tells this story about Uncle Rob when he was super young, wiring, I believe it was an intercom system from the house to your little tree house in the backyard. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So, and she also described him as constantly taking things apart, electronics, and figuring out how they work and putting them together. So before the actual professional experience, you were involved and there's definitely a passion there for electronics.
Definitely.
Yeah, so all right, so today, like we talked about, we're gonna go over some of the things that Uncle Rob and his team are in charge of. And so the first thing I would like to start out with is actually your team has some security practices that they have to follow. I know that you're not the HIPAA department, but you still have some security practices that you have to instill in yourself and in your team. And could you just mention a few of those security policies that you guys abide by?
Well, I don't know if they're necessarily policies, but security is always trying to figure out ways to not have users, including myself, logging in as administrators. Because usually when someone's coming in from the outside, they're going to get in using somebody's administrator account that they got hold of. And it's usually, I think some of the examples they've had here have been some pretty embarrassing examples. But so they try to have us elevate privileges to install things with separate usernames and passwords that are used only to elevate permissions versus logging into every workstation as an administrator and having that log. So we spend a lot, we try our best to not always log in. Now they haven't successfully figured out how to do that across everything that we do as desktop support, but we attach to a person's computer as that person, and then when we want to install something, we elevate permissions just for that install or change or setting change that we do at the workstation. That's one of the security policies, I guess, if you want to call it that, that we follow. And they don't mess around with infected machines, machines that are that trigger their infection detection software, are immediately disabled. We go collect the machine, immediately replace it, re-image it with another machine. They, don't get, I had one lady, don't get to keep their cornbread picture on their desktop, once they change out their computer, So, but we get dispatched to infected machines. We just basically go pick them up, put another machine on their desk, get them running. But we're dealing with 7,000-8,000 desktops in just our region, and we're one of 7 regions. So to try to micromanage that is really difficult. To try to clean those things up is just really time consuming. But they lock the workstations down pretty well. Users don't have a lot of control, especially, there's a desire for generically logged in workstations that are kind of like more of a kiosk than a business class workstation. So those are really, you can't even right click on one of those workstations. So you're usually better off supporting those remotely. So, but how people are logging in, how they're using their user IDs, everything is pretty policed.
So Rob, I'm curious. Do you guys get kickback from end users that they want to do more and they fuss? Oh, why can't you let me do this? And what do y'all?
Always, yeah.
What do y'all tell them? Just too bad. Sorry.
Well, in a little bit gentler way. Basically, what I found over the years is it's a lot of times you really got to ask what they're trying to do. Because they'll put a ticket in saying it's XYZ, and it's not what they're trying to do. They just have kind of summarized what they think they need,
right?
And then ask for it. And then once most everything they need to be able to do for their job has already been pretty thought through. So sometimes you'll just ask them, well, what are you trying to do? And have you tried doing it this way? Right. And it gets around the need for them to have, I guess, for example, external CD-ROM drives, because nothing comes with a CD-ROM anymore,
right.
And they'll get a study from another facility on CD, and the first thing they want to, why can't I do this? And it's like, well, do you realize that your department has a machine dedicated to reading these? Oh, no, stuff like that. There's usually somebody has thought it through somewhere. It just It's knowing that, you need to do it this way.
Yeah, connecting the pieces from the decisions that have been made to the actual end users.
Yes. So, but yes, they do push back. People do get a little upset. They can't, change their desktop anymore. Have their picture of the cornbread as a background.
I remember the company that I used to work for as the IT director there, and we took that step to lock down the desktop wallpaper. I swear you would have thought that you took their firstborn child away from them, and maybe we did, because they probably had their firstborn child on their desktop or something like that. But it the kickback that we got for doing that was substantial. There's a little bit more than I expected.
Yeah, so you talk about locking those stations down. Is that I mean, how exactly? What are some of the ways that you lock the user out from doing those type of things? I know you talked about no admin access, obviously, but do you have any other things that you guys put into place to help make sure that these tricky users who always seem to find a way to delete or accidentally do something, do you have a few more security measures you put in place for the desktops?
Well, they do have an AppSense program that basically, is installed when the machine is imaged. It's not really even installed by the deployment team. It's already there. It's monitored to be there. If they remove it, it automatically puts it back. They can't remove it, but if somehow they figure out how to remove it, it'll just reinstall next time they reboot. So I know they're using group policy and machine policy for some of it. It's a blend of a multitude of things that is locking those workstations down. So, and encryption is even in there. If somebody grabs one of those devices and walks out the door, there's nothing they can do with that hard drive. I mean, it's unless they have that 26-digit key. I mean, they're not going to do anything on that workstation, and there's nothing stored on that workstation. So they're encrypting a drive that has no data stored on it. It's they go to the nth degree to be sure that they can reliably say there's no it came up missing, but there's nothing on there.
You're not leaking any data because there was nothing on there to leak.
But they still encrypt that workstation, monitor it. If somehow the encryption is removed or stops functioning, it hits a hit list, and my team goes out to figure out why it's no longer encrypted or why it stopped encrypting or whatever. So
do you guys wear suits with dark sunglasses and earpieces?
We do. We did choose to have black uniforms. So.
Nice. Well, I think one of the things that impresses me and is a little bit mind-boggling is just the amount of devices, the number of devices that you have to do in quantity, the number of different devices you have to do. And then, when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned that there's about 50 different departments that use 50 different specific softwares. So can you help just kind of paint that picture a little bit? Like how do you and your team manage all of that?
Well, I mean, each software package that a department, well, this is how they're supposed to do it. But before they buy something, it has to go through there's a separate desktop team that does nothing but manage that desktop software install environment. I mean, so they are, supposed to take that to security, the IT security team, and this team reviews that software to be sure that it provides adequate PHI protection, has to have specific user logins, has to be able to, has to be a workspace that can work on an encrypted arena, because, the data has to be encrypted in transmit, encrypted in storage, both, so if it doesn't meet it, then they're not allowed to install it. Now, I can tell you, I'm, many times have been called to a department to, hey, we need this installed. And it's like, okay, well, who's your IT contact? It's like, well, we don't have one. So, well, how can you not have an IT contact for this project? They spend 50 grand on a package, and they haven't got a security review on it. And that's a tough spot to be in, not for me, but for that department head, because it's not getting installed today. And if they're scheduled to go live on Monday with the vendor, it's not going to happen, and it, there's a lot more to it than even just the IT specs for that software. They have to be able to bill it, have to be able to collect payment. There's a lot of pieces to that if they don't have it all together, it's not going to happen. But for the most part, we have deployment software systems. Even the users themselves can go to a web page and request that software be installed on their desktop, and it will automatically install.
Nice.
Once it's been approved by whoever reviews those requests. So if they need Zoom, for example, they can go to this web address and they put in their computer name and they request it, and then in the next 4 hours they have Zoom. Zoom plugin for Outlook, I think, is also an option.
Is all of that automated, or do you guys receive a request and then you remote in, or how do y'all manage those?
For certain products like Zoom, it's automated. That software does it. As soon as somebody approves it, it just uses SCCM to install it. So I mean, if you've used SCCM, it used to be you manually would go to it and trigger it off to install, or you drop a computer into a OU container in Active Directory and it would install the product for you. That software basically is doing the same thing, only the user requested it and an admin approved it, and it just installs. Some of them, I think, I don't even think they get reviewed. They just get installed. PDF reader, stuff like that just goes. So, but it is, I think just at least 250 different pieces of software just in our location here, that if people have difficulty with it, the service desk gets it first, and tries to troubleshoot their problem. And then, if they can't figure it out, one of my guys is there looking over their shoulder, just trying to help identify really what their problem is, because they don't know what to ask for.
Right.
So, and then, if it goes deeper than that, then, my team has to contact that desktop team or a server team, or, to figure out why, this particular workstation isn't playing well.
That's yeah. I envisioned when you talked about having the user fill out that form and put their computer name in there. I would imagine you probably get a ticket saying, "I don't know what my computer name is," and so that you get involved in that way too. That's just what I pictured because of the user experiences we have had too.
Yeah, the computer name, how much memory, all that stuff is right on their computer desktop. Actually, it's part of the background.
Yeah.
So we used to put it on a little star that said computer name, and they could click it, and it would open up and tell them the computer name. And if they click the link inside that little thing they opened up, it would automatically take them to the ticketing system, so they could request for help. That's other things that have been done in the past, but people still just pick up the phone, dial that help desk number. The challenge with the help desk now is that it's one help desk for 7 regions. So imagine 250 pieces of software in 7 regions. You're expected to kind of know everything.
Wow.
And it's not always possible to get a first call resolution on a piece of software. They get upset. because it's not the way it used to be,
How do you not just know the answer to everything?
Yep.
Level 1 support, you ought to know everything already. But how do you guys pass information from technician to technician? Do y'all have a pretty extensive documentation suite that people can get into, or what do y'all do to pass information?
We've started using some Teams resources lately, but it's still a lot of people just knowing who is the expert on that, because you've been here for forever. A lot of the guys that work for me, it's like, how do you know all this stuff? Because at one time I put it in, or took it out, or even stuff from other regions. It's you either put it in or took it out. So I know what that is, and this is what you got to do, because this happened to us before. And we do have a ticketing system that we use that's the same for all 7 regions. So if somebody calls and they assign it to the wrong region, we add notes, just reassign it to the right group in the different region.
So the amount of devices, different devices that you use, can you talk about some of that? Like, I know obviously desktop computers you're supporting, but are you doing cell phones? Are you doing other IoT devices on top of that?
Yes. If it doesn't touch a patient, IT gets it. The hospital has a biomed group that is specifically responsible for items that are going to have contact with a patient, and are specially certified with the FDA to maintain and keep those up. The problem is biomed engineers are not computer people, and computers have taken over the biomed world. Even those your IV pumps, are wireless devices now. So they're checking in with a server somewhere. Sometimes just for the simple, it seems odd, but just the simple task of where is it? Because they've got 2,000 pumps, and they'll get to the end of the day and we can't find it. So they'll rent new equipment, temporary equipment, because they've run out, and there's 4 stuck in a closet on the 8th floor. So they've computerized an IV pump just so that they can find it. It just seems odd.
Is that like the Find My iPhone thing, where you ping it and it just starts dinging and you go find the sound, or how does that work?
They actually can, the software can actually find it.
That's cool.
With a map overlay.
Triangulates from all the wireless devices.
It uses wireless, so it can tell it from the access points where it is.
That's awesome.
So, and you would think that why would you need that? But then you look at the numbers. They'll rent a device and then lose it and have to buy it, and they don't even have it. So, if you have that happen a dozen times, and with medical equipment, some of them are $3,000 and $4,000 a device. Buying the software and keeping track of it starts to make economic sense.
Absolutely.
So
yes, that's a great point, and that I'd love for you to talk about the iPhone story.
Oh yeah,
you're talking about things being lost.
Yeah, we have about 1,500 iPhones that are used without cellular service for nursing across 3 hospitals. Everybody needs one. But they're basically run a SIP app, and they actually tie into the electronic medical record. So it pulls data down from the EMR, and it knows what patient's in what room and has what nurse assigned to it. So if another nurse walks into a patient that's not in her room, she can take that iPhone out of her pocket, and she can text the nurse that's responsible for that patient ask them a question, they can figure out who the doctor is without even having to go into the EMR. They have it right there in their hand.
That's awesome.
And it actually records that text conversation in the electronic medical record. So, it keeps track of, if they use that, they can use that device to contact the doctor. The doctor has it on his iPhone, probably his personal iPhone. And he can tell him what he needs to happen, and it records it. Now he still has to put an order in and do all the legal responsibility of the electronic medical record. But, even that little conversation of, this is happening, what would you like us to do, is recorded in their chart.
I've just got to imagine if you look at that versus the way things were 20 years ago, and you're in the medical field, which time is very often of the essence. You've got to have much better patient outcomes just because of technology like that.
Oh yeah, just recording the patient outcomes, having a report that actually has accurate data. It's really only, really this is only 8 years old.
Yeah.
Electronic medical record is not that old. Yes, they were using computers and they were tracking it, but it was a very limited scope. It was, it would track certain information, but it wasn't near enough. And what they're using now, they're clamoring all to get to the same platform, because when they get all on the same platform, reporting becomes very easy. Right now healthcare is based on outcomes now, right? You go online and you look up what's the reputation of that hospital, and it's based on an outcome of how many patients were readmitted after they were discharged. It's all online now, and they have to report it, and that's part of their Medicare resulting is all in their reimbursement for Medicare is based on it. So the lower they can get certain numbers, the better reimbursement rates they get. So it's become quite the desire to have the best electronic medical record they can get.
Yeah.
So, and next week's go live is switching from an old 8-year-old medical record program to the new what they want to be on type deal. And it's a major switch, major learning curve for doctors and nurses, major frustration point for them sometimes too.
So you'll be busy next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think,
so,
I'd always wonder too, it's like, what do you need me there for? Is it, and I think sometimes they just go, we just like having you there.
You're that security blanket.
I don't know what the deal is sometimes. It's like, why do you need me there? I can just do this from my desk. Oh, we want you to be there. Okay.
So with those iPhones you're talking about, I imagine there's a few that get misplaced every now and then.
Oh yeah.
So
I routinely get orders, a department you just delivered 8 to will put in an order for another 10. And I'm like, how many nurses do you have? It's supposed to be a device that multiple people use. So you log into the device and it takes on your characteristics. So, the original concept was, we give your department 8 of these phones, you have maybe 4 or 5 nurses working at any one time, so you have plenty, and as the shift changes, you just log out, stick it in the charging, the multiple charging bay, and, the next nurse uses it. Well, it ends up, they lose them, they misplace them, and we like, how can you, are you managing? These are like $700 items. So, and you guys have ordered 25 in the last 2 years, because we can tell. And, it's just, but they, they're managed by a mobile device manager. So if they leave the premises, it knows. Somebody tries to turn it on, it pops up on a Google map. And they call law enforcement and tell them, hey, go get our stuff. Well, yeah,
So does that kind of stuff happen by accident, where the nurse just leaves it in their pocket or something like that, and heads home, and all of a sudden, knock on the door. Hello.
Well, they're not quite that strict on it, but I found them laying on steps going into the hospital, and, sitting on tables in the cafeteria, is pretty common.
Yeah.
And so mobile device manager works well there because it also, it has a profile for the device that only allows certain things on the device, and then also, helps you find it.
Yeah. He was talking to me about they lost so many that he gave them I think you gave them like a time period or something where you'll replace them for free, and if not, it's on them. Isn't that correct?
Yep. We actually permanently disabled them about 3 months ago. The ones that were on the, you find one of these phones has this message on the screen, you get a free phone. And they got zero response for more than a month. And then they found a few, there's 155 of them we disabled. And, I got three of them last week. It's been 3 months. My question, where were these? Of course, when they find them, it's, big deal. We got to do it right away. So, well, it's been disabled for 3 months. I can't imagine that it's a critical need. So, but yes, they have it's not what they do for a living. They take care of patients, and I guess we should be glad that that's what they do. So,
that's right.
But with COVID, yeah, we've been running at 99 to 101% capacity. Well, since March, so that there's a lot more people here than there usually is, and that puts a big strain on resources, from desktops to these patient-safe phones to IV pumps rolling around the hospital. Everything is stretched because they never really buy for the whole. But they never really buy for 100%, right? So, when a computer breaks now, it's a little bit, it could be in a COVID room. Got to suit up, go in, swap out that computer, and then, one of the biggest hassle has been they are washing down the rooms with a, can't remember what they call it, but I think they call it COVID water. I don't, but they've been spraying the computers so liberally that they're frying the monitors. And we'll get probably about 5 monitors. We were getting 5 to 10 monitors a week.
Wow.
And that's a major expense when you start doing that in a week. So, and that ended up being an education with housekeeping. They were hiring, yeah. I mean, that, yes, you can't, do you submerge your monitor at home? No, please don't, spray the rag, wipe the monitor, but, but it's, the hospital's the cleanest place to be right now. It's, they are, on a normal room, they're really cleaning rooms. They're not just saying they cleaned them.
Yeah.
So they're dedicated people to do nothing but that. They're suited up all day long. I don't know how they could stand it, but going from room to room.
And so with the COVID, and that was actually a great segue, because that's what I was going to talk about a little bit next, was your staff, was your manpower decreased at all because of the, like a lot of things with COVID, a lot of people were kind of laid off or furloughed. And so did that affect your team at all?
Well, it did not actually. I have 15 guys. We had I think maybe 2 out for 10 days that actually contracted COVID and not from the hospital, you know, from being at home. We lost open positions, in the furloughing. But, everyone was panicked, I think, about, because we are pretty much the hands and the feet of IT on the floors. And we're not just doing desktops. They were at the time building a new tower here, which had all brand new ICUs and ER in it. So if we would have followed the normal COVID rules, they would have suspended construction. But they got a special allowance from the state to continue construction because
they needed those rooms.
What was on that list? A whole, almost tripling the size of our existing ICUs.
Yeah.
So not only did we open up new ICU and ER, but they remodeled our previous ICU space. I'm sure, I don't know. I assume it probably was at the state's expense. I don't know. So we ended up, tripled our ICU space, which, helps keep us above the 15%, right? So that restaurants can stay open, stuff like, or below 15%. I think here in January or early January, they were at capacity. They had all of those rooms in use. So luckily now it's, I think we're less than 40 COVID patients this week. So, this downturn has been a really good thing. So, but it's been an interesting, if you say you had you could test negative and say you have a headache and get a 14-day vacation. Not necessarily by your choice.
Yeah. Okay. Oh man. A lot of great things we've covered. I actually would love at this point just to kind of open it up to questions from anybody who's on the call with us. We also are live on Facebook, so any questions we have on Facebook, we're going to just go ahead and open it up a little bit to see if we get some audience participation here.
Yeah, David, I know you had a question that you wanted to ask about legacy OSs. So if you'd like to talk to Rob
Sure.
about that.
So taking a couple classes in networking right now. I'm kind of starting my journey in this. And one of the exercises we did actually was looking at a hospital and digging into things like how many medical devices use Windows 7 as their OS, and with the discontinuing, support of that, how many devices are either having to be isolated on the network or replaced altogether, or how you guys are handling that transition, at a mass scale.
Well, when they first decided that you couldn't have any Windows XP devices, going a little bit farther back, we definitely had to isolate XP devices on the network, give them their own VLAN or give them a way to isolate them, because it was devices that were that was in every department as a device, and they needed time to replace that equipment but yet keep it operational. So yes, they isolated XP devices. Windows 7 is, I guess, we're in the process of eliminating. We have not eliminated all of our Windows 7 in the environment. I think we're less than 800 left, I think, out of 7,000. So you can only replace so many so fast and have enough budget for that. So, but the embedded OSs in some medical devices are definitely a problem because the devices are pretty expensive. But those departments are expected to try to, budget and try to eliminate those devices. And there will be a cutoff time when they're like, no longer, you'll have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is paper. You know,
So
you'll
are
have
there
to
shifts?
transcode those results versus getting them electronically.
So are there shifts in the industry, like medical devices, that you guys are seeing to where they're making them a little easier to update and a little bit less reliant on hard coding to specific operating devices, or are they just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again?
Oh yeah, they are very happy to sell you a new device with Windows 10 instead of Windows 7.
It's more of a feature, huh?
Yep, they are not
Stuck on
going to
Windows 7.
rip apart an old one to make an old one work. They are going to require you to buy the new device.
Wow.
And replace that device. So, you know, I look at it, you know, they've held on to that device a long time to still have Windows 7 on it. You know, whereas the manufacturer probably told them 8 years ago, you guys need to think about a new device. And they're like, no, this one works just fine.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to have some give. You have to be able to provide them a solution as long as they're working towards replacing that device. They're, you know, because it takes a long time sometimes to communicate that up the channels and get the money allocated to replace that device. You know, the device is working, it is doing its job. It's just a little bit harder and may not have the same amount of detail that a new device would have, you know, where it automatically updates the EMR because it has a connector that connects it to the EMR in the new software, you know, whereas, you know, I think some devices would print out a printout on thermal paper, you know, and then, you know, they have to try to scan that into the EMR, and, you know, it creates a lot of labor, you know, and eventually they have to justify that up the chain that, hey, you know, we can use one less person if this was updated. You know, of course, then, you know, either it breaks or they end up updating it anyway, you know, in an emergent issue, you know, situation. But yes, there is a lot of friction because hospitals kind of aren't making the money that they used to, you know, in some of those rural hospitals, you know, and they're trying to just keep going, but they can't necessarily come up with capital to replace large ticket items.
So you guys are in obviously a high targeted industry or area for cyber criminals. You've got very valuable data in that health data. How often are y'all seeing attacks hitting you, and if you have any fun horror stories to tell too, we always enjoy those. But what are you seeing on your side from somebody that has high value data?
Yeah, you know, from my perspective, you know, I've maybe removed some workstations that, you know, were considered infected by security, where they, you know, actually called us, instructed us, go get that piece of equipment right now. You know, that probably maybe only 5 or 6 times, you know, in recent memory. Yeah. You know, so, you know, a lot of the measures are pretty decent in place, but, you know, they also, those, you know, it used to be before we were connected to our larger organization, you know, that everybody was here, you know, you heard everything about everything. Now, you know, now everything is quite siloed. I know a while back they staffed security for 24 hours a day for about a week during that last supposed, you know, healthcare attack. But I never saw anything. I wasn't instructed to go get anything out of that attack.
It's a pretty good sign that they must be
you
doing
know,
a good job.
Yeah. So, and I do know that from my previous exposure to those guys that, you know, they're paying people to try to hack them. You know, that's how they learn to adapt and make changes in policy, and, you know, come up with their list of things that they want to try to get done. As far as, you know, like elevating permissions and having, you know, techs use different accounts, you know, that all came out of, you know, a server admin getting his username and password hacked. Yeah, and them getting all the way to domain admin,
right,
with that account.
We have a guy that comes on the calls fairly often, Harley Kimball, and he does some pen testing and actually doing the physical pen testing. So I'm curious, have you guys ever had either someone that you paid or someone that was just trying to do it to pretend to be IT support, calling or dressing up like you guys and going trying to get into systems?
I don't think we've intentionally done that, but I get calls because I guess I'm the memorable person, I guess, but I've gotten calls from different locations, with someone stopped at the front desk. It's like, we don't know who this guy is, and he's not going anywhere. I've got security here, and I have to kind of say, well, who is it? What does he say his name is? And then yes, he's okay. So our staff is pretty hardened. Because we were smaller and they're used to seeing the same people. And when somebody new shows up, and want to touch their stuff, they're pretty possessive. I think I remember getting offered offices in just about every building that you can office here. We'll get you an office, right? You'll just stay here all the time. He said, no, it doesn't work that way. But yeah, I appreciate the gesture, But so, they are pretty, somebody shows up at the door wanting to do something there, you're not the normal person that stops by here, who are you? And if they don't have proper credentials on, or, they can't explain why they're there, they'll call security. So, and, sometimes vendors show up,
right?
Unannounced and unplanned, and they get turned away. They're a little mad because they drove 4 hours to get there or something, but it's like,
I bet that's a mistake they don't make more than once.
Correct.
Yeah.
So. That's great to hear that they are being stopped, though. I mean, I know when we talk to Harley, he's quite successful a lot of times. I have another friend who, he always jokes he's a bank robber, but he does the social engineering. And he went to Idaho and he got 4 out of 5 banks. He got complete access where they leave these dummy little USBs there. And he also got into the vault into 2 of those. So they just gave him everything he wanted, and so that I really like to hear. That means that the training and cybersecurity education that's going on is good, and that's encouraging for me to hear.
Yeah, people still click on OK without reading it.
That might be forever. Yeah.
But the likelihood is higher. Walking into a building is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Especially some of those, some of the clinics are small. So they don't, necessarily want anybody in there to begin with, let alone, But if you drop the right names, I'm sure you could get by. If you knew the names of other techs, you could probably get through. Now, how long you'd be there, I don't know, because some of those managers are pretty controlling of their facility. So, they want to know why you're there, what you're doing. So
it's probably better to have them question more than to be nice.
Yep.
Wow. Man, this has been great. We are getting kind of towards the end of the hour here, and I know that all of you probably are busy. Me, I have to go back, to the ocean over here in Mexico and work on my tan just a little bit more. No, but actually, if there's any kind of last minute questions, this is a perfect time, or we can just kind of wrap things up. David, did we have anything else on the Facebook?
I don't see anything else on Facebook. That's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Uncle Rob, for coming on. I know it's been a little difficult with communication, me being out of the country and all. But and then the ice storm. So the ice storm in Louisiana and Texas was so bad that it actually cut out the internet at my resort, just 15 minutes bike ride from here. So that's why I'm joining everyone from this cafe. And I forgot my headset, so the audio is a little different than normal. But we do just appreciate everyone coming out. Uncle Rob, thank you so much for sharing your experience and knowledge with us.
I don't get to tell Jimmy stories.
Oh, we got 8 minutes.
Yeah, we need at least one Jimmy story.
Okay, let's hear
Oh,
one.
I'm just teasing.
Okay.
I wouldn't embarrass you like that.
Good. Oh man, there's probably some you could drop that would surprise a lot of the audience out there. So. But yeah, we used to go hiking all the time. My Uncle Rob would take us hiking. And so one of the things that I remember was Pictured Rocks in Michigan. That was probably one of the best hikes I've ever done. And so
Yeah,
great memory.
That was our COVID vacation last year. This past
Really?
summer, I took everybody to Pictured Rocks. Yeah.
Nice.
And then the last time I was there was with you.
That's right. That's right.
Texas is a long ways from my experience.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, again, David, Todd, Uncle Rob, David DeArmond, even thank you all for coming out to this episode of Chill with Jim. Actually, David, do you have our topic for next week?
Yeah, so next week we're going to be getting into ransomware a little bit. We're going to be talking more specifically about Emotet. And, Emotet's been around for a little while now, still wreaking havoc. So we're going to talk about what can you do and just educate people a little bit more on that particular piece of ransomware and how it gets its fingers into everything.
Well, I know from the movie The Mummy that Emotet is a bad thing. So I'm guessing it's a bad thing. But no, again, everybody, thank you for out there for joining us, for your questions and participation. Be sure to check us out on YouTube and subscribe, like if you like, that would be great. And we went ahead and dropped that information for next week's chill in the chat. And thank you so much for coming out. Adios.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, David.